Hi everyone, welcome back to the Art of Business English. This is Andrew Ambrosius here again today. And in today's episode, we are going to focus on grammatical issue. Yes, sometimes we have to do grammar, unfortunately. Now, this issue is something which I know many non-native speakers struggle with. And basically it is gerund or infinitive after verbs, okay? So the gerund is the ing form and the infinitive form is the infinitive of the verb, okay, of any verb in English. So, most verbs, when they are conjugated, are then followed by another verb in infinitive form, okay? However, there are some exceptions, and some verbs require that the following verb be in the gerund or ing form, okay? So it's very important that we have clear which ones these verbs are, okay? And what I also find interesting is that many of these verbs or expressions, we do use them in English, okay? In business English a lot, okay? So they're commonly used business expressions. So again, it's very important that we know the difference between a verb that's followed by a gerund or an infinitive, okay? So the question you may be asking is, how does this affect my English? Well, firstly, if you don't use a gerund form after a verb which requires a gerund, then it makes you sound less fluent. And what is important to note, and this is a positive thing, is that in most cases, if using the incorrect form will not affect the meaning of the sentence, okay? So a native person will still understand you. However, it does sound a bit strange, and native speakers will notice this mistake, okay? So what are we going to learn today? Well, by the end of today's episode, you will be able to understand the following, okay? 5 points today. Firstly, which verbs are typically followed by gerund and or infinitive? Because some can have both. When can we use both gerund and infinitive? The difference in meaning between gerund and infinitive when using the same verb. Okay, so sometimes if we follow a verb by a gerund, it has a different meaning with the same verb if it's followed by an infinitive. We're also going to look at prepositions and expressions followed by gerund. And in the last part, I'm going to give you some common expressions used in everyday English or everyday business English that follow these rules. Okay, so let's get started and have a look at gerund or infinitive. So firstly, let's just make sure we have very clear what a gerund and infinitive are. So gerund is basically adding the ing to a verb. Okay, so for example, comer, eat, becomes eating. Okay, or to eat becomes eating. Secondly, the infinitive form is any verb in English written with to before it. Okay, so remember, in English we write our infinitive verbs with to. So comer is to eat. And remember, we need to put the to. Okay, it's very important. Some people forget the to because, a verb in English without to is what? Imperative. Eat. Okay, eat is the imperative, whereas to eat is the infinitive. So a little thing to remember there. Okay, so now that we have that clear, let's have a look at the theory behind the gerund or the infinitive after verbs, all right? So after certain verbs, we use the gerund form or the ing form. And after other verbs, we use the infinitive, okay? Sometimes we can use either form, okay? And there's no change in meaning. And occasionally we can use either form and there is a change in meaning, okay? So we need to know these rules. So let's have a look. Verbs commonly followed by another verb in ing are the following. Avoid. So avoid is evitar. Can't stand, okay? Can't stand in this context does not mean no puedo estar de pie. It means no soportar, okay? I can't stand listening to loud music, okay? Consider, okay? Considerar. Deny, which is rechazar, denegar, okay? Dislike, the opposite of like, okay? No gustar. Enjoy is disfrutar. Finish, terminar, acabar. Mind, now mind here is importar. Practice, practicar. Risk, arriesgar. Suggest, sugerir. And imagine, imaginar. Okay, so those verbs are typically followed by, or always followed by, another verb in gerund. Now, let's look at some verbs which are followed by verbs, the second verb in infinitive. So the first one is afford. So afford is permitir. So permitir comprar algo. Decide, decidir. Fail is fallar or suspender. Intend, intentar. Intención, ¿no? Con la intención. Offer, oferir. Plan, okay, plan is planificar. Pretend, pretenderse. Promise is prometer. Refuse, again, like deny. Refuse is rechazar. Okay. Tend, tender a. And want is querer. Okay. So those verbs are followed by another verb with infinitive too. And the third one is the verbs which are followed by infinitive or gerund, and there's no change in meaning. So continue is one, continuar. Hate, odiar. Like, gustar. Love, gustar mucho. No, I love it, me encanta, encantar. Prefer, preferir. Start, empezar, comenzar. Begin, the same, comenzar. Okay, so those verbs can be followed by both gerund or infinitive, okay? So let's look at some examples. Always examples are good. Now, I told him you really enjoy working for the company. So enjoy plus gerund, working, enjoy working. Would you mind helping me? Would you mind helping me? So mind plus gerund, helping. Would you mind helping me? It started raining on the way to the airport. Okay, started plus gerund, started raining. Or, it started to rain on the way to the airport. So again, with start can be both followed by a gerund or infinitive, and the meaning is the same. She decided to invest in the new company. So decided to do something. So decide is followed by an infinitive. And I wanted to finish the report. And that want is followed by an infinitive. Okay, so those are some examples. Now, this is where the next part is where people can have problems. The negative of these structures, okay, is with not and ing. So sometimes students will use don't, okay? They think, okay, it's a verb, it's in the present simple. I need to negate it with don't. So they don't know that it's not. So they say, imagine don't complete this report on time. Imagine don't complete this report on time. That is incorrect, okay? You would need to say, imagine not completing this report on time. Okay, so that's a little mistake there. I mean, as I said before, if you say, imagine don't completing this report, or imagine don't complete this report on time, a native person will understand you, but they'll be like, ooh, that sounds strange, okay? So in next example, in the end, they decided not to change supplier. So the rule applies for both the gerund and the infinitive. In the end, they decided not to change infinitive supplier. So again, some people would make the mistake by saying, in the end, they decided don't change supplier, okay, which is very wrong. All right, so you need to be aware that when there's the infinitive or gerund after these structures, you need to negate them with not, okay? Now, using both gerund or infinitive, let's move on to the next section. There are some verbs which can be followed by both gerund or infinitives, okay, and there is no change in meaning, all right? It's very important. The most common one is like, all right? We use like a lot. For example, I like working from home. There are less interruptions, all right? Which is the same as I like to work from home. It's more relaxing, okay? So you can see here that both are followed by different structures, gerund or infinitive, and the meaning is the same, all right? Now, gerund and infinitive after verbs with a different meaning. Let's look at that one, because this is where it becomes a little bit more complicated, so you need to listen carefully, because when it's explained, it can be a little confusing, but I'll do my best, okay? So there are some verbs which are followed by ing or infinitive, but the two options have different meanings. For example, okay, the verbs remember, stop, and try. All right, so I'll give you some examples that'll help. So first one, I never remember to turn off my computer. Okay, I never remember to turn off my computer. So it's a remember plus an infinitive. Remember plus infinitive is remember something and then do it, or remember something and then not do it. Okay, so remember and do the thing. Okay, so yesterday I remembered to call the doctor. Okay, it's something I remembered and then I did it. I remembered to call the doctor and then I called the doctor. Okay, next one. I don't remember agreeing to this proposal. So don't remember agreeing. Here we're following remember with ing. Okay, so remember plus ing is you remember doing something you did in the past. Okay, so for example, another one. I remembered calling the doctor. So you're bringing a memory from the past, okay? Es recordar de haber hecho alguna cosa. So you're remembering the action and you're bringing that memory to the present, okay? So a little bit different. One is remember to do something, so you remember the action and then you do it. And the other one is remembering an action that you did in the past, okay? Next one with stop. She stopped smoking 3 years ago. So stop plus gerund is stop doing a thing, stop doing an action, okay? For example, stop talking, right? Someone that says stop talking wants you to be quiet, okay? They want you to stop the action you're doing, which is talking. Whereas if you use stop followed by an infinitive, then it's different. For example, it was hot, so we stopped to have a drink. So we stopped one action to do another action. Okay, it's not that difficult. It's quite simple when you think about it. We stopped one action, so we stopped to do something so that we could do something else. Okay, stopped to have a drink. Okay, we stopped walking to have a drink. All right, so that's the difference between those two. Now let's look at try. Try is also followed by a gerund or infinitive with different meanings. So why don't you try taking lemon and honey for your cough? So try plus gerund is used as a suggestion, okay? And you should try and see what the result is. So for example, why don't you try taking lemon, okay? And honey for your cough. Try doing this and see what the result is. Whereas if we use the infinitive, it's to report what somebody has done or attempted to do. For example, I tried not to cough during the film. So not to cough, again, the negative form with not. I tried not to cough during the film, but it didn't work. Okay, so I'm telling you that I tried to do something in the past. Okay, I'm reporting the action to you, or I'm reporting this information to you. Okay, all right, so that's a little bit different. The meaning is different here. All right, so I hope that's clear. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. Okay, if you want to, you can review it, listen to this again, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can also read this information on our website. So let's look then at prepositions and expressions followed by gerunds, all right? So it's very clear that in English, all prepositions are followed by a verb in ing, okay? That's the first rule you need to remember. Preposition followed by a verb in ing. For example, I'm thinking about organizing a meeting first thing Monday morning. So the person is thinking about is a preposition. So therefore, the next verb, yes, is in gerund, organizing. Okay. Many people make mistakes with the verb thinking. Okay, or I'm thinking. They say I'm thinking to. I'm thinking to organize. This is wrong, okay? There are only two prepositions that can follow think are about or of, okay? But I hear this as a very common mistake. I'm thinking to organize. You cannot ever say I'm thinking to, okay? You need to say I'm thinking about or I'm thinking of plus a verb in gerund, okay? So, what are some common prepositions? Let's have a look. You've got about, above, across, after. Remember, after is a preposition here. Against, among. Remember, among is entre un multitud, okay? It's different from between. Between is entre dos cosas, and among is entre muchas cosas. Around, at, before, behind, below, between, but, by, during, except for, from, in favor of, in front of, including, into, of, on, to, under, with, without. Okay, so those are some examples of common prepositions, all right? So let me give you a quick example. You should check the oil before starting the car, okay? So before is a preposition. So the verb start is in gerund, starting. All right, we can also use the ing form or the gerund form after these common expressions, okay? So these are very common in business, all right? To apologize for, to be accustomed to. Okay, so apologize for is disculparse. To be accustomed to is acostumbrado a. To be for or to be against. To be for is estás de acuerdo con algo, and to be against is estás en contra. Okay? Be good or be bad at. Okay, so ser bueno o malo en algo. And remember, it's not to be good in or to be bad in. It's the preposition at. Even though in Spanish it's ser bueno en. Okay, in English the preposition is at. Be interested in. Okay, interesado en. Be used to, acostumbrado a. Okay. Have difficulty in. Tener problemas en. Okay, that's that one there. Insist on. Insistir en. Look forward to. Look forward to is desear or esperar con ganas. Okay, very common. For example, when you're writing formal letters, you can say, I look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay. Object to. So object to is you reject, rechazar algo. Okay. And succeed in. Tener éxito en. Okay. So those are some common expressions that we can use in business, and these expressions are followed by a verb in ing. For example, John insisted on coming to the trade fair even though he can't speak English. So insisted on plus gerund coming, okay? And last point, now this is a little extra. You note that when a verb is the subject of a sentence, it is also in gerund. So what I mean, basically, when a verb starts a sentence, for example, smoking costs a lot of money. Here, smoking is a verb, okay? Fumar. Fumar cuesta mucho dinero. In Spanish, it's infinitivo, fumar. But in English, it's fumando cuesta mucho dinero, okay? So we use the gerund as the subject. Reading is my favorite hobby. Leer is mi hobby favorito. So in English, it would be leyendo is mi hobby favorito. Okay, so it's important to note that when a verb is the subject of a sentence, it is in gerund. So I'm just going to finish up now with some common expressions for business. Okay, so object to. I object to not having my opinion heard. Okay, now this sounds very difficult. No, I'm going to give you another little bonus tip here. What's interesting about English is that we often use after these structures the present perfect. Okay, so having my opinion heard. So this is a passive and it's also present perfect. So to have something heard, it's present perfect structure, okay, because it's have plus the third column of the past participle verb of hear. So hear, heard. And what you'll notice is that even though haber is an auxiliary, okay, in English it transforms and is a gerund. Okay, so we can transform the auxiliary verb haber, have, and make it gerund so that it follows the rule. So object to not having. This having is not tener. It's the auxiliary form of haber for forming the present perfect. Okay, so I hope you understand that. It may sound a little complicated, but that's an interesting fact about English. Haber, the verb, which is have, can transform, okay, into gerund so that it follows the rule of gerund after these specific structures, okay? If you do have questions about this, let me know and I'll explain it again, okay? Send me an email or put a comment and I will be more than happy to try and explain it with some more examples. All right, let's continue then with some expressions. So, be interested in. We are interested in finding new suppliers who understand our company's philosophy. So, interested in finding. To be for or against, the board is against paying a dividend this year. So, the board is against paying, against plus gerund, a dividend this year. Deny. The directors denied having lied to the shareholders. Okay, again, this is another structure which has the present perfect. So, have lied is haber mentido, okay? So, it follows the structure of a gerund. So, the haber is taking the form having. So, the directors denied having lied to shareholders. Mind. Would you mind listening to what I have to say? Okay, would you mind listening to what I have to say? Have difficulty in. We are having difficulty in understanding the conditions of your offer. Okay. And finally, succeed in or succeed at. After months of trials, we have succeeded in creating a perfect sales funnel. So, that is pretty much it. I appreciate there's a lot of information there, and some of these structures can be quite advanced. But let's have a look at some final thoughts. There are some positives. As you can see, there are many common expressions, okay, that follow the gerund after verb rule. It's very common to make mistakes with these structures, okay, especially when using the negative form, okay, or the gerund of haber, okay, and the best strategy, okay, for learning these structures is through practice and application. And even though at first they may seem complicated, the good news, and this is the positive thing, is that they're fixed structures, okay? So the meaning is fixed and the structure is fixed. So this means that once you have memorized them, they won't change, okay? It's always deny, okay, plus gerund. All right, it's always want plus infinitive. So you just need to memorize the structure. Okay, so be sure to study this material. Take notes, and if you do have any questions, then shoot them over to us at the AOBE website, or you can send them to us via Facebook. And as always, it's a pleasure having you here with us, and I really look forward to being with you again next week. I've got some interviews lined up, so hopefully I'll have some interviews for you guys to listen to in the future. And until next week, take care, and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye for now.